Hi everyone, my name is Hannah Landers and I am the Career Services and Employer Relations Manager in the Pamplin College of Business. Thank you for tuning in to our cover letter workshop today. During this workshop, we are going to spend some time talking about the purpose of a cover letter, when and how to properly use a cover letter, and then we'll also talk about the key things that you'll want to include in order to write a letter. So to start off, I wanted to spend a few minutes talking with you all about what a cover letter is and why you would write one. So a cover letter is a document that will accompany your resume. It is not meant to replace or repeat your resume, but simply to supplement it along with your application. So it is essentially serving as an introduction to you and your resume. So think about when you attend a career fair or a company event and you're first meeting a recruiter. You often have a short elevator pitch or a statement that you'll share about who you are and why you're interested in the company. This is essentially what a cover letter does for you in written form. The last thing I want to note here is that cover letters are individualized for each specific company that you're sending it to. So your cover letter differs from your resume in that you will need to write a new one each time you apply to a different position. So before you begin writing your cover letter, it's important to understand why you're writing it and what the purpose is. So the purpose of a cover letter, similar to what we've already mentioned, is to introduce yourself to the recruiter and the company. This is, again, a chance for you to give your brief elevator pitch type introduction in a written document. You'll want to spend some time in your cover letter describing how you came to know about the position and why you're interested in this company and their opportunity. A lot of times this will simply mean mentioning where you heard about their position, whether that be on Handshake or Business Horizons, and giving a brief statement on why you initially thought that this would be a good fit. Next, the purpose of the cover letter is to motivate the reader to check out your resume and ultimately give you an interview. Your cover letter is meant to sell yourself and get you to that next step of the job search process. You may also want to use your cover letter to draw attention to certain parts of your resume that make you an especially strong candidate for this position. Or you might choose to use your cover letter as an opportunity to explain anything that you consider a hole in your resume. For example, sometimes students will have special situations that can explain why they took a semester off, or why their GPA isn't quite as high as they'd like it to be. Your cover letter is a great opportunity for you to share that information with the recruiter. I often get asked the question, when is it appropriate or necessary to send a cover letter? There are several situations in which you may want to send a cover letter, and we'll go over them here. The first and most obvious answer is that you should always be writing and sending a cover letter when the recruiter or application expressly requests that you do so. Keep in mind that if the cover letter is requested, it is very likely that it will play a role in the recruiter's decision-making process, so it's important to take your time and write a well-crafted letter. Another example of when you will want to write a cover letter is when you're submitting your resume via email. In this case, you don't need to type up your letter in a Word document and attach it. Instead, you can use the body of the email to draft a short cover letter addressed to the recruiter. Keep in mind that a full cover letter may appear a bit wordy in an email, so you'll want to write an abbreviated version in this case. You may also want to consider writing a cover letter when you're applying to a position online and you will not have a chance to interact with the recruiter face-to-face. In this case, there may be things that you want to share with the recruiter that you won't have an opportunity to unless you write a cover letter. On the other hand, it is not necessary to bring a cover letter to a career fair like Business Horizons. At events like this, employers will only have a minute or less to look over your resume and will not have the time to read cover letters from each student. Sharing your elevator pitch face-to-face and having a conversation is much more impactful, and the career fair allows you to do this rather than writing a letter. Finally, I want to note that there may be situations where you're debating writing a cover letter for any given position. Understand that it is up to you whether you'd like to write one, but that some recruiters may not read it, so it's important that your resume still captures everything that you want them to know. On the flip side, it is very likely that anything you submit with a job application can be considered as part of your evaluation. If you do choose to submit a cover letter, take your time and resist the urge to copy and paste from another position without putting effort into creating a tailored and polished document. Now that we've talked about why and when you would want to write a cover letter, let's talk briefly about the components of a cover letter. Your cover letter should have 3 parts, similar to a simple essay that you probably have written for school at one point in time. It should include an introduction, body, and closing. Within these 3 sections, you will want to make sure that you're communicating your interest in the position and in the company, a few reasons and highlights describing why the recruiter should want to call you in for an interview, and finally, a call to action or a follow-up message indicating the next steps. Beginning with the introduction, we're going to talk about each of these sections of your cover letter in a bit more detail. First, your introduction should be no longer than a paragraph. But within this paragraph, you need to make sure that you've captured the reader's interest. You'll want to identify the specific opportunity that you're applying for and share how you've learned about the position or the company. You can also add a quick sentence that briefly describes why you would be a good fit. For example, you could say something like, I believe my education and experience in sales will allow me to make a valuable contribution to your team. It doesn't need to necessarily provide a lot of details in this section, but again, something that will grab their attention. The body of your cover letter is the main section that will include the bulk of what you want the recruiter or hiring manager to know before making a decision. This section should be somewhere between 1 and 3 paragraphs and should demonstrate that you've done your research about the position and that you understand what is to be expected in the role. Take a look at the job description and pick out some skills or qualifications that you feel you can easily demonstrate. Then think back to your resume and experiences and write out some specific examples of how you will be able to meet these qualifications and why this makes you a strong candidate. This section should be a blend of experiences that you have on your resume with additional information that can supplement. I encourage you to avoid simply repeating what is written in the bullet points of your resume. The recruiter will be reading both documents, so make sure that you are providing extra details, examples, or explanations that can add value to your cover letter. Finally, the closing of your cover letter should again be 1 paragraph. You may choose to briefly summarize what you've told the reader so far, and then you'll want to make sure that you establish next steps. This might be cordially requesting an interview or a phone call with the recruiter. You may also let the recruiter know that you intend to follow up in the next few weeks. Be polite and avoid making demands in this section, but be clear about what the next step is. Alright, so once you've drafted the content for your cover letter, you'll want to make sure that you're formatting it much like a letter. The only exception to this would be when you're writing your brief cover letter in the body of an email. But for most cover letters, you'll be writing it as a typed document and you'll want to include the following items. You'll want to include your name and contact information, the date that you're writing the letter, and then the address and name of the recipient. Most likely you'll be submitting your cover letter online, so including the physical address section is not always necessary, but if you have the address, it can still be a nice touch to include, as this is the traditional way to format a cover letter. Then you'll want to address the letter to the hiring manager or recruiter, such as Dear Mr. Smith or Dear Hiring Manager if you don't know the name of the individual. You can also use To Whom It May Concern or something of that nature if you're very unsure of who will be reviewing the document. At the end of the page, you'll want to make sure you include a polite signature. Some examples of this might be respectfully or sincerely, but there are several options that would work here. Alright, so here are a few guidelines that we want you all to keep in mind as you're writing and formatting. First, and I know I've mentioned this already, make sure that you're creating individualized letters for each position that you apply to. This way you can really effectively communicate why your background and skills would be a good match. Second, I encourage you to limit your letter to 1 page. Keep your letter concise and to the point to help your reader really understand your most important points. Now, this is something I often tell students as I'm editing cover letters. Sometimes you'll find that when you're writing a document about yourself and describing your own experiences, you'll read it back and see the word I a lot, as in I did or I created and so on. Something that will help with this is to make sure that you're varying your sentences, both in structure and length. This will help your writing not to sound choppy or repetitive. Another guideline is similar to what we tell you all for your resume. Use action words to help describe your accomplishments. Make sure that you're describing things you did rather than passive sentences describing things that happened to you. Finally, proofread thoroughly. Writing individualized cover letters for each position means that you need to proofread each time you send in a cover letter. Remember that this is part of your first impression with a company. Another question I often get asked is about how to effectively describe your strengths. Some of the recommendations I have for this are reading over your letters of recommendation that you might have, either from previous professors or teachers or employers. Another good place to start is looking at your current and past job descriptions. Sometimes you might forget what a particular job taught you or the skills that you've developed on that job. So looking at job descriptions can help jog your memory. And finally, always check out the job description for the position that you're applying for and highlight those that you feel you're really strong in. Once you've written your cover letter and have it formatted, you'll want to make sure that you get another set of eyes to review your letter before sending. While you may not be able to do this for each and every letter that you write, having someone check out your first letter or your first couple of letters and provide any necessary edits can really help you improve for the future. And then finally, make sure you're following up after you submit a cover letter or an application. Don't be afraid to reach back out to the recruiter, politely of course, and request an update or check in. Especially if you've indicated in your closing paragraph that you'll be in touch, make sure that you follow through. Recruiters do expect these type of emails, so as long as you're being polite and not demanding, that is perfectly acceptable. Alright, I wanted to show you all what a sample of a completed cover letter will look like for formatting. Notice how the sender's information is listed at the top with the recipient's information listed below. You'll see a formal greeting, Dear Hiring Manager, as well as a respectful signature. The content of your cover letter could vary widely from what is written in this example, as this is a very vaguely written example of a made-up opportunity. Be sure to use wording and content that is comfortable for you while following the guidelines and suggestions we have gone over in this workshop. So that wraps up what I wanted to share with you all today. I hope that you will find some of this information helpful as you begin writing and editing your own cover letters. Please contact us after you've been through this workshop if you all have any questions about your cover letter or would like our team to help you edit. We're happy to do that. I've listed here some of the other things that our team is available for, so please feel free to reach out to us to set up a career advising appointment. Our email is listed there. We're at pcobcareers@vt.edu. Or if you have any ideas for future workshops, we would love to hear that feedback, so please let us know. All right, well, thank you all so much and good luck writing your cover letters.